And this is our guided meditation series. I'm your guide, Zach Feeney, and we will begin here. So when you're ready, just find your seat and begin to close your eyes and feel your body resting in space. Let gravity settle you in. Feel the sensations of heaviness and warmth or coldness, vibrations, whatever you can notice that reveals that you have a body. Feel the sensations of breath coming and going. See if you can feel all of this closely enough so that as to relax the concept of the body, your sense of its shape. If you feel your hands on your thighs or knees or on the armrest of like a chair, feel the sensations closely enough so that you no longer feel the shape of your hands or your arms or legs. Notice that all that is really there is a cloud of sensation, changing moment by moment. You don't actually feel the shape of anything. As you pay attention to the breath and the sounds and sensations, I want you to observe the difference between attention and consciousness. They're not quite the same. Attention is like a spotlight in the field of consciousness. So, for instance, pay attention at this moment to the feeling of your tongue in your mouth resting against your teeth. Feel those sensations as closely as possible. But notice that there are other things that you do notice. You're paying attention to your tongue, but you can also hear my voice and other sounds and other sensations in your body appear to you in the field of consciousness. So you're aiming your mind at your tongue in this case, but other things are appearing. It's the sense of aiming that is attention. And it's also the sense of aiming that can feel like the self, can feel like there's a meditator in the center of consciousness. This is an illusion that we'll spend more and more time considering as we practice here. But for the moment, notice how attention feels. And pay attention now to the sensations in your hands. Really focus there. Try not to miss anything. But notice too that you're also hearing the sound of my voice. That is just impinging on consciousness all on its own. You're trying to notice everything in your hands. It's that difference that I want you to observe. Attention is the attempt to narrow the field of consciousness. Now, attention can seem to be directed by an act of will. There's a connection between action or attention and volition. See if you can feel that directly. Pay attention to the sensations in your back. Really try to place your mind there to the exclusion of all else. Attention can also be directed into the mind itself, into memories and images. Picture the Statue of Liberty and pay attention to that image. Whatever appears, however vague, picture the statue as closely as you can. Now pay attention to part of it. If you have an image of the face, the crown, or the raised arm and the torch, or you can do this with some image that you're more familiar with. Picture the whole thing in a flash, but pay more attention to part of it. Even while doing this, you're hearing my voice and feeling sensations elsewhere in the body. The last minute of this session, just give up all efforts and don't pay attention to anything strategically. Just notice what appears in the open space of consciousness. Well, once again, thank you for the efforts you're making here. I hope you're finding this a good use of your time. Again, the goal, if we can use that concept here, is to erase the boundary between formal practice and the rest of life. So more and more, I'll be encouraging you to think about what we're doing here as indistinguishable from another moment, other moments in your life. And perhaps you could build that into the rest of your day in some formal way that you can pause before starting work at your desk or before making a phone call or answering an email. Just check in with your state of mind. Again, if only for 10 seconds, punctuating your day with moments of mindfulness really is immensely powerful. So I'll be reminding you to do that from time to time. So I woke up the other day in a truly lousy mood and was immediately hit with several small problems in text messages, which, magnified by my mood, struck me as minor emergencies. And later that day, I was talking with someone I trust, and I began to complain about these problems. And he said two things that were extraordinarily wise. And here you'll see the psychological value of being in good company, but also the value of being someone who's committed to seeing his mind and life in a certain way. So after hearing me out, the first thing he said was, well, none of these problems seem that big. You can easily deal with these things. So the question is, do you really want to be this stressed out right now? Now, of course, that was a rhetorical question. He knew the answer was no, and he was simply reminding me that it was possible for me to be mindful of how my thoughts and emotions were arising in that moment. Like a perpetual motion machine of dissatisfaction, he was reminding me I can give them space, and that it was possible to achieve real equanimity in the present, whatever these problems were. And of course, if you don't know how to meditate, you can't really do that. You have to find some way to think yourself into a new state of mind. You have to begin solving the problems, otherwise you can't get off the ride. But if you're mindful and you can change your state before you solve your problems or apparent problems, before you think your way through to a place of optimism about the future. So the fact that I wasn't paying close attention to the mechanics of my own mind was my real problem in that moment. I was the problem, and what I was doing with my attention was the real approximate cause of my unhappiness. And it was my unhappiness that was motivating me in that moment to brood about my problems. But then he addressed my situation on a conceptual level as well, which is often even more useful because simply reminding someone to be mindful doesn't prevent them from falling back into the same pattern of thinking a minute or an hour later. Finding a new framework in which to think about a problem can. So we said, were you really expecting to have no more problems at some point in your life? You're just going to wake up one morning and none of this would be happening. There would be nothing on your to-do list. You actually want nothing on your to-do list. And life is mostly about solving problems, and you can solve these. So my problem more than anything else was that I was treating problems themselves as anomalies. I was tacitly assuming that I should be able to get rid of all my problems and avoid any new ones. Even though this sounds ridiculous, that was implicit to my thinking and to my emotional life, to the way I was meeting each new problem. But of course, I can never get to a place where problems stop appearing, and neither can you. Life is an unending series of complications, so it doesn't make any sense to be surprised by the arrival of the next one. The magnitude of the problem might surprise you, but the fact that new complications in your life are arising hour by hour is absolutely to be expected. Very soon, some machine that you are relying on to do work or to keep you comfortable is going to break. This is guaranteed to happen. You're also going to catch a cold in the not too distant future, and your plane will be late or your luggage will get lost. At some point, you might injure your knee and you need to see a doctor for it. It can't be any other way. Really, it can't be any other way. And the expectation that it can or should be some other way is a great source of unnecessary suffering. Suffering that actually makes it harder to solve the problems we should faced with. Be faced with. Ironically, this is a problem that you can solve, and you can do that by expecting more problems to arise every day of your life. It's like you're playing a video game. Did you expect that there would be some incredibly boring level of this video game without problems? This is the game we call existence. Problems continually arise. So enjoy them. Thank you, everybody, for choosing to be here or watching this later on. I will talk to everybody, hopefully everybody next week.